Hello everyone. In the last video, we understood how to install OpenWebUI using a Docker container. In this video, we're going to be looking at all of the different functionalities that OpenWebUI interface has to offer. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll first start by going over to our localhost 3000. Now we know here that OpenWebUI is currently running because the status here shows that it is running. So I'm going to go to localhost 3000. I can just click on this link, or I can go to the browser of my choosing and go to localhost 3000. Now in this case, I'm already signed in, but say that I wasn't. This is the interface that you're going to be provided with. For the first time, you will need to sign up, and you can sign in with your name and your email. And when you sign in the first time, that's essentially going to be the admin account. So just remember that email and password that you signed up with the first time. So after you sign in, you're going to be greeted here with this interface. So the first thing that we can do here is when we're on this interface, we can take a look at some of the different controls that are provided here. So within OpenWebUI, we have access to all of these different chat controls. So we have something known as valves, we have some system prompts, we have some advanced parameters, and all of these are things that we're going to be looking at in a lot more detail in the coming lectures. For now, let's just take a look at something simple, like system prompt. So by default, we can select a model. In this case, I'm going to select the Llama 3.2 model. And I'm going to say something like, how are you today? And you can see here that I get a response from the Llama 3.2 model. However, if I was to change the system prompt and I was to say something like, provide responses only in rhyme, and I can give the same prompt, how are you today? And you can see here that it gives a response based on whatever conditions that I've specified in the system prompt. Now, within this sort of a interface, if you're signed into the admin account, you also have access to something known as the Workspace. So within the Workspace, I can do things like select different types of models, whether it's the Llama 3.2 or the Mistral Nemo model or the 3.5 model. I also here have access to something known as prompts. Now, imagine that you're using a large language model and you're asking the same sort of prompts over and over again. In some circumstances, what you might do is do something like create maybe some sort of a document, and you're essentially storing in all of these prompts that you're reusing over and over again. Well, you don't need to do that when you're using OpenWebUI interface, because all you need to do is you can create your own sort of prompt here. Say that I create my own prompt, give me a motivational quote for the day. And the command could be motivation. And the prompt here could be something like, please provide me a motivational quote while I am preparing for my exam. And then let me save and create this prompt. And say that I wanted to use this prompt. All I would do is I'm going to put in a / and type in motivation. And when I do that, here you can see that it automatically gives me the prompt that I've typed out. So in this case, I don't need to have a separate document that stores all of my prompts. I can just store all my prompts here. It makes it really easy to call them. I can enter this just by selecting a model, and I should be able to get a response. So other things that I also have access to in my workspace are documents. So here, for example, I can provide a list of all of these different documents that I want to interact with. Maybe I want to use some advanced techniques known as RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. I can do that within this tab. I also have access to tools. And within the OpenWebUI community, there is a plethora of tools that are available that we can download. And I also have something known as functions. So for example, if I wanted to maybe run some Python code or visualize data or visualize tree of thoughts, I can use those functions. Again, functions are also something that we can get access to through the OpenWebUI community. So all of these are things that we're going to be learning about in subsequent lectures. Now, the last thing here that we'll talk about is the use of different models. So here I have the Llama 3.2 model. And say that I want to write me some code to inverse a linked list in Python. And I get a response here from this model. But suppose that I'm not sure if this is the best way to actually inverse a linked list. What I could do is I can add in a second model, maybe something like Phi 3.5. And I can give it the same prompt. And in this case, it creates this split screen window where I have one part of my window that's giving me the Llama 3.2 response, another part here that's giving me the Phi 3 response. So overall, I would say it's pretty cool. I can get this sort of response from both the Llama model as well as the Python model. Now, if I wanted to, for example, understand what is the best way to write this code, well, I can pretty much just take the code that I get from here and the code that I have from here, and then maybe I can provide that to a third large language model to maybe summarize what are the main differences between the two, or what do you think is going to be the best sort of response. I could also get maybe a model that takes in, for example, code that's written from 5 or 10 different models, and then give me an average of what it thinks is the correct answer based on the response from 10 different models. So I can apply all of these aggregation or ensemble learning techniques. But that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully it gives you an understanding of all of the different tools and functionalities that OpenWebUI interface has to offer. And in the next couple of videos, we're going to be looking at all of these things in a lot more detail. So we'll be understanding how we can make use of tools and functions and pipelines and all of those in a lot more detail. So stay tuned.